Hello everyone and welcome to On Topic Retro Microsode number 3. I'm John Cummins, and today the game that I chose for this episode is no other than Kaeru no Tame ni Kane wa Naru, and that roughly translates into the frog from whom the bell tolls. And this game was never released in the US, so this will be the first time that I do an episode on a Japanese-only game. Hopefully it won't be the last, depending on how easily accessible the game is and whether or not I can get a patch to play the game in English, or if somebody has already patched the game on a ROM that I can play it in English. But just so happened that I've found out about this game, it's been a couple years ago now, and it's been on my list of games to try to find and pick up. So not too long ago, I grabbed a copy of it, a Japanese copy on eBay, so that I could, have the official ROM on cartridge. And then shortly after that, found a translation ROM for the game and played it in English. Which it's just kind of a shame that this game never actually made it to the US, because it's a fantastic game, and as I get into it more, you'll fully understand why. And it has a huge cult following with not only the Japanese audiences, but with American audiences that have played the English translation. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think that the English translation came along in like 2011. Somebody did all the work for that, unofficially, I will say that. But if you can find a copy or a way to play this in English, I highly recommend it, because in some ways it's kind of the grandfather of Link's Awakening. It's the reason why we have that game today. So, as far as my experience with the game goes, like I said, I've only known about the game for a short while, and it intrigued me enough to follow up on it and pick it up pretty quickly. And I've been playing it over the last 3 months or so in my spare time. It's kind of my side game that I play whenever I have a minute. And I have not completely finished the game, but I definitely have a good feel for what this game is, and I've had a lot of fun just playing around with the different game mechanics that come along with it, and I definitely will play to finish. And I don't generally run these shows as like a spoilery type podcast. Like, I tried to basically give you the same kind of story narrative that you would find in the instruction booklet. No major plot twists or anything like that, just the bare bones of the story, a little bit about the characters if provided, and I'll definitely get into the gameplay that I've experienced so far. And I really just wanted to go ahead and talk about this while it's still fresh, and I've been playing it a little bit more here lately, in the hopes that real quickly after I record this, that I'll be able to knock it out. But I was just too excited to hold off, and wanted to go ahead and record and maybe get the word out for some people to try to play this game that haven't heard of it before, or understand what it is. I think I've mentioned it a few times on RetroLogic, which is the other podcast that I currently co-host, and anybody that listens to that will know that I have a pretty good appreciation for the game. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about this game. The basic general overview, as I said, the roughly translated uh, name for this would be the frog for whom the bell tolls. I don't know how official that is. Like I said, it's never been released in the West, so this is basically the best name we have for the game. It is an action-adventure game, similar in the vein to Link's Awakening, as I mentioned earlier. It's developed by Team Shikamaru of Nintendo's R&D 1. I can't think of anything else offhand. I don't know. I can't put a guarantee to it, but they probably had some form of involvement in Link's Awakening's development, being that it's the same engine that was used. But I can't say for sure. This game released on September 14th of 1992 in Japan for the Game Boy. The music was also composed by Kazumi Totaka. And the music is fantastic. I hope you guys enjoy some of the sound clips that I will put in between sections of the show. It just all around is a really good this example of something that hasn't been done before at this point in time, and everything just kind of flows together, and it's just a magical piece, just a really good game in general. So as far as the story goes, it says, in a land far away there are two princes, Prince Richard of Custard Kingdom and the game's main protagonist, Prince Sable of the Sable Kingdom. They have shared a friendly rivalry since they were small children. They often compete, although it usually ends in a tie or a close win in fencing. However, Prince Richard is always the victor. And one day, a messenger arrives with from a small neighboring kingdom, warning the princes that the evil king, Delarian, has invaded the, how do you pronounce that? I think it's Milfoy? Hold on, what? Milfoy, yes. Which is apparently like a French dessert, but I just kind of looked up some of these things. It kind of fits with the I forgot what I was going to say. It fits with the theme of the game. You have the Custard Kingdom. The only one that doesn't fit is the Sable Kingdom, unless that's another dessert that I don't know about. But also fits with, it just seems like the whole game, the names are revolve around desserts of some kind for all the names of the places. So anyway, King Delarian has invaded the Milfoy Kingdom and captured the beautiful Princess Tiramisu. In yet another boastful attempt to best Prince Sable, Richard grabs a boat and rushes towards the kingdom. The Sable Prince is left trying to catch up, and while on his journey, he and Richard, along with others, are transformed into frogs in an attempt to reveal the true happenings in this kingdom. So, as I said, there's certain story beats to the game that I won't talk about, just in case somebody wants to experience them for themselves. But that's just kind of the loosely translated story that I imagine came from like the instruction booklet of the game. I don't have it and I can't translate it, or I didn't translate it. It's probably on the internet somewhere. But so you're basically playing as a prince, and he grows up with his best friend, another prince from another kingdom, and he's constantly being bested when they fence. And you can kind of get the feeling that this prince is always, he's used to coming in second place. So through the whole game, you're kind of chasing down the other prince to try to get to the princess first, because you want to be first for once. And the whole story just kind of goes from there. And a little bit about the characters. I kind of jotted some notes down that I found from the wiki page for the game. The main protagonist of the game, like I said, he always comes up short anytime they're doing a competition of any kind. He hails from the kingdom of Sable, and they are the wealthiest, most powerful kingdom in the land. This leads to him constantly thinking that he can just throw money at all the problems that he has early on in the game. You'll notice that really quickly. Every time you're to solve a problem, it usually involves him spending a absorbent amount of money to try to fix it at first, and it always backfires. So you'll kind of catch that early on in the game. The other prince, Prince Richard, the one that's always besting Prince Sable, hails from the Custard Kingdom, and through the whole game, he will compete with Prince Sable to save the Princess Tiramisu. And then that brings us to the actual Princess Tiramisu. She rules the Milfoy Kingdom. She's known for being very beautiful across the land. And that's pretty much all you learn about her from the beginning. There are some things you'll learn about her later that I won't mention. But she definitely is a big part of the game. There's a thief named Jam. He is from Alamode, which is another area in the game. He first mistakes Prince Sable for a member of the Crokian army, which is the army that King Dalarian has. But then later realizes that he has been mistaken and that he's actually a good guy, and him and the prince become friends. He is somebody that is also turned into a frog at some point in the game, as mentioned earlier as part of the story. There's also the witch named Mandola, who wears sunglasses, and she holds the answer to how to defeat King Dalarian, or at least she tells you in the beginning of the game that she's the only person that can tell you how to do this. She's accompanied by an Asvogel, which is a condor-like bird, and his name is Polnareff. And every time you see her, like, she's brewing potions or telling you about these potions that you need to take to solve your problem. Which we'll get to that a little bit later with the game, as I talk a little bit about the gameplay. And then next is King Dalarian. He is the game's main antagonist. He has captured the princess and sent his army across the land to wreak havoc. It's later revealed that he is actually a snake that plans to eat you whenever you're turned into a frog. I figured I would go ahead and mention that because that's not a huge part of the story. You learn that pretty quickly, probably within the first hour of playing the game. So I figured I'd throw that in there to give you, because you don't really know a whole lot about Dalarian other than that right off the bat, so that's a good thing to just kind of throw in there. The last character I have in here is the Mad Science Dean. He is a scientist that works at Nintendo Incorporated. He has a love for wasabi and creates inventions to help Prince Sable, most notably a rideable mech called the Ikari Z that can be called by playing a Z flute, which is pretty funny because that's all, that's like the White Ranger from Power Rangers, or the Green Ranger, summoning his Zoid with a flute, which I guess this game came out in 92, so it's probably, around that sweet spot for Power Rangers as well, to kind of get a inspiration from. Kind of a weird game to bring that into, but I don't know. That's the first thing I think of whenever I read that. So that's pretty much the story and a little bit about its characters. Since this is more of a story game, I figured I'd kind of break down all the main characters that interact with you in the game. And as mentioned before, at some point, a lot of these characters have been turned into frogs. So that's all fun. And we'll talk a little bit about that more here in just a minute when we get into the gameplay. The so the gameplay about this game is different than Link's Awakening. It gets compared a lot because it's on the same engine. You're seeing a lot of the same things. There's some side scrolling that requires you to do a little bit of platforming. You have the top-down view like you normally have from Zelda that you see a lot in Link's Awakening. You will engage in battles in both views, but here's how the battles kind of differ from Link's Awakening. It's not like a hack and slash type action RPG. You know, it's not Link using his sword to defeat enemies or a bow and arrow or, projecting things back with a shield. All the battles are fought by running into an enemy. That's how you initiate the battle. And then you'll see like a little dust cloud that appears on the screen where your characters were, and that's what is depicting the fight. And how the fights work is if Prince Sable is way stronger than an enemy, he will just defeat it automatically. If not, during the battle, your opponent and you will take turns losing health until one runs out. And there are different stats in the game that can affect this outcome that will either slow down how fast you're losing health or speed up how fast you're taking the health away from the enemy, or a combination of both. The three stats are strength, speed, and defense, and all three of these stats can be altered by equipping weapons and armor. There are no levels. It's not like an RPG. That's kind of why I think that's Nintendo's usually pretty good at narrowing down a good genre for a game, and they're calling this an action adventure game similar to Zelda. With that being said, there are items just like in Zelda that can help you defeat enemies, and how you use an item is in the middle of that little skirmish that's going on with that dust cloud. You can hit the A button during the battle and choose whether you want to use an item, and different items have different varying effects. So like you can eat wasabi and that will or you can give somebody wasabi and it will temporarily stun them. There's saws that will help you defeat tree enemies that are in the game. The first time you run into a tree enemy, it's not super apparent that you need this, but you pretty much get your butt kicked like right away. Like all your hearts just get depleted very quick. You understand, right off the bat that you're not prepared for this battle and that you need to start looking for ways to better prepare yourself. And then that's whenever you go to the store and you see there's a saw, and then it all makes sense. Like a lot of the stuff you can put together pretty easily. It's not super convoluted, or it's not Link's Awakening. Like there's a lot of points in Link's Awakening where, especially when I was playing as a kid, you get to a point, you need an item, it's totally in a different place. Excuse me. It's not even very well pointed out that you need to go find this item in this totally different place, but over time you figured out, and also I had the guide, so that helped out tremendously. But so far in this game, most of the things that I need to know are right around the corner, and you'll figure them out fairly easy. It's not super difficult in that manner to understand what you need to do. So as I was saying, you'll have to find items and weapons and armor and equip those things to make your character stronger, and you need to win battles. Winning battles gives you money, can refill your hearts. Similar to Zelda, how you'll defeat an enemy and it'll leave like a little heart, and then you go pick it up. And then a lot of the boss battles that you fight will require you to have basically solved the puzzle of making Prince Sable as strong as he can be for that area. So you'll have to find the strongest weapon, armor, and any items that might help to defeat the boss. Because how these battles work is you have to outlast the enemy, either by having a good defense to slow them down from draining your health, or a very good attack to take the enemy's health down fast so that you can defeat them. And most of the time with a boss, it kind of requires a mix of both. So that's kind of what you're looking for. If you lose a battle, you will end up waking up at the nearest hospital. You'll see hospitals in towns as you're walking around, and at any point, I believe you can actually just go to the nurse in the hospital and refill your hearts for money, just like any other game where you lose health. There's usually a way to pay a current in-game currency to heal yourself. And then after, that's pretty much battling and what happens if you win or lose. The last bit here I'll talk about is some of the transformations that you'll perform in these games. There's a little bit of the story involved in this too. Like I talked about earlier, you'll run into the witch. She's always making potions. One of the very first things you'll do is you'll go to her for advice, and she'll say, hey, the answer to your problem is that you need to drink this potion, and it will help you to defeat the king whenever you come to him. So you give her most of your money, which is one of the things that you do in this game, like I've mentioned before, and you get a potion, and what you think is like going to make you strong and help you defeat this boss actually turns you into a frog. It makes you very weak. But it's something that, as you're playing through, it makes a lot of sense because now you can talk to the other frogs that you find in areas, and it helps you get to other places that you couldn't reach before. Like there's some areas that are covered in water, and when you unlock frog form, you can travel underwater. You can, walk like a normal character underwater. You also can jump higher. There's just lots of things that you can do as a frog. But the one thing that sometimes you need whenever you're in frog form is to fight, and you can't really fight as a frog. The only thing you can fight when you're a frog are bugs, and you instant kill bugs, kind of like whenever Prince Sable is a lot stronger than an enemy. So it's kind of you have to kind of develop a balance of when you want to be a frog and when you don't want to be a frog. And basically how frog form works is if you touch water, well, after you've figured out how to become human again, when you touch water, you will turn into frog. And let's see, what's the other, how do you become human again? I gotta remember this. Okay, I figured it out. So joy fruits are the item that you eat, and it helps you become human again. I had a brain fart and had to look that up. I couldn't remember what they were called. I remember there was an item because the other transformation is also due to an item. But again, just to kind of recap, as a frog, you can't fight. So there's times you want to be a human so that you can attack things. And that requires you to eat a joy fruit that you have in your inventory. The other transformation you make in this game is into a snake. Which you will gain by taking the second potion that you get from the witch. And you basically find out that you can assume the snake form whenever you eat hot spring eggs, which is another item in the game. So you'll eat that to become the snake, and then you'll also eat the joy fruit to go back to human again. So the snake's abilities are basically you can pass through small holes and tiny places that you need to be able to go where you can't fit as a frog or a human. You will inadvertently scare any frogs that you come into contact with, so you can't talk to them. But you can bite weak enemies and turn them into blocks, which helps with some of the puzzles. Because the snake also, I forgot to mention this, the snake also has the shortest jump. So in order to reach certain areas with the snake, you'll have to turn enemies into blocks, and that kind of creates another puzzle element for the game. And the only way to transform is if you have those items. So you learn to try to always keep certain items on hand so that you can perform the transformations at the right places when you need them. And then the game kind of just becomes a balance of knowing when to do those things. And again, always making sure that you're trying to find all the best equipment for Prince Sable as you're playing through the game to have a better chance of defeating the enemies. And that's pretty much the gameplay loop. Like, it's a lot of overhead exploring, packed or countered with some side-scrolling platforming. And I will say the platforming is not like the greatest platforming. There's actually a little bit more of it than there is. Like, Link's Awakening has not even what I'd really call platforming. The side-scrolling in that game, you're using ladders and things to go up and down. So there's not really platforming in the game. Like in this game, you do have sections of the game that require you to make jumps and like reach ledges and hit platforms at certain areas. So it definitely takes some getting used to. It's definitely not Mario. So those parts of the game seem to be, it's more in tune to like what Link's Awakening is. You definitely do a lot more overhead view puzzle solving than you do the side-scrolling events. But let's see, that's pretty much it for gameplay, as far as I know. So, like I said, I haven't completed the game. There might be some weird gameplay factor that I haven't encountered yet, but for the most part, this is what I can tell is the gameplay loop. So with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and I've got a list of some fun facts. This game is full of some fun little things. The title of the game is actually a play on the book written by Ernest Hemingway, For Whom the Bell Tolls, which I don't think is too hard to figure that out just by reading the translated title. A lot of the characters from this game appear in other Nintendo games from time to time. You'll see Prince Richard in Link's Awakening, if you've ever played that game. You'll see, which some other characters make, from other games make appearances in Link's Awakening as well. We've talked about that in other shows. The Mad Science Teen is in Wario Land 3 and Dr. Mario as either a playable character or an opponent, as well as appearance in Wario Land 4 as a fellow explorer in the bonus rooms or as a projectile. That's kind of an odd one, but yeah, you'll see some of these characters in other games. Smash Brothers Brawl has the Prince Sable sticker, and the Wii U and 3DS versions of Smash show us a version of Prince Sable as an assist trophy. And the assist trophy would also move up to Smash Ultimate, along with adding Prince Richard, the frog form and snake form as spirits on the spirit board. So there's lots of Nintendo celebrating this game and its achievement, but it just never has made it over to the US. And I'm kind of hoping that at some point we get a Game Boy app on the NSO service, Nintendo's online service for their retro games. I really hope that at some point we get that app and we see this game come over using that app. They've done it in the past with some games that were before NSO were previously unreleased in the US, and then they brought them over here. I was trying to think of, I think the Panel de Pon was one of them that had been released in the US in other forms, but never as Panel de Pon, I don't believe. Like, it's the same thing as Pokemon Puzzle League or there's there's another one that's like that too. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, I hope that at some point we get this game localized and brought over. And I think that NSO Game Boy app, if it ever does exist, this is me wishing it into existence. If that ever does happen, I think that's the route that they'll take to bring it to us, since it's been so long, and we're obviously not getting a Game Boy Classic anytime soon. But yeah, this game is super fun, and I can't promote it enough for anyone that is, even a fan of Link's Awakening. Like, I don't want to make direct comparisons because this is a totally different game. It plays different. It just has some of the same assets. The engine is the same. But other than that, it's a totally different game, a unique experience that needs to be separated. I'm glad that this game exists and that we got Link's Awakening, but at the same time, like, everybody should go enjoy this game as well, because it's a great game. And with that being said, that's pretty much it on the game. I might make an update once I do finish the game on RetroLogic, the other show that I do. But I really wanted to get this out, and I want people to play this game if they can find it, or find a way to play, and just let everyone, just kind of get the word out that it's worth playing and don't pass on it. So that was kind of my wish with this episode, and of me wanting to get this out, and it kind of works out time-wise to talk about it now and rather than later when I get busy talking about some other things. This was kind of a slow spot that I could fill with a microsode. So, alrighty. Well, thanks for listening to this microsode version of On Topic Retro. We're part of the RetroLogic family of podcasts. If you haven't joined the wonderful non-toxic RetroLogic Discord and would like to, please feel free to go visit retrologic.games. There's details on the website on how to join. It's free. Just come hang out and talk with other retro gamers that are just like you and enjoy talking about their games that they love, and just really lifting everybody up. It's a very good community. You will definitely have fun. You won't find anybody that is looking for a fight. There's no arguments. I mean, everybody plays nice. And, I hear a lot of other Discords being touted as the same, but I will say that I've been a member of several Discord communities, and there isn't another Discord community like our family of podcast communities. That would be like Nintendo Dads and RetroLogic, and I'll even throw Nintendo Pals and All In Podcasts. Those guys are our good friends of ours, and they all share the exact same vision and love for video games, and they're all great people to talk to just in general. So if you feel like you're missing that part of gaming, that you want to be involved and have somebody to talk to about games, this is definitely the place to be. So go ahead and visit the website, find out how to join, and just start hanging out. So that's it for this microsode, but stay tuned for more. There will definitely be more microsodes and episodes, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye now.